What's up, Muggles? Welcome to episode 3 of the HPTV podcast with Mitchell, Steven, and Jaime Ramos. Now it sounds like we're all Ramoses. Jaime, yours background looks different from ours. Are you not as big of a Harry Potter fan as us? Is that what's happening?
I've quit after 26 years or whatever. No, we're recording on a weekend. My kids are home, so I have to be in a more discreet location, to which they will still interrupt us. But whatever.
The hot tub room. That's what I think of that room as. There was once an indoor hot tub in that room. I'm not kidding.
On the second floor.
It's just people are like, "Ooh, it's a nice house." Nope, it was ghetto. But you probably do have the best merch collection. We were kind of talking about merch. Maybe we'll do a deeper dive on merch, but we're talking about how you wish there was maybe some more subtle Potter stuff. Steven was saying that, but Jaime actually has trinket wise, you probably have the coolest stuff on that shelf that's no longer behind you.
I'll show it another time. But yes, I do. A lot I've got on my own. Some I've inherited, especially book-wise, because I still live in our hometown we grew up in. Everyone else has left. So some of your guys' stuff I've ended up with from childhood. But people often do not know what to buy me for gifts. So I end up with them just buying me Harry Potter stuff, which is completely fine.
A solid go-to for Jaime. I know that she will appreciate most anything Harry Potter. I'm just getting to the point where every time I see something, I'm like, does she already have this? Because she has quite a bit.
And I'm running out of space for it.
But if you duplicate it, you just give it back to me because I don't have that one yet.
Okay.
So you accidentally buy another one of those wands. I'm not allowed to display the wands, so just books. Just tasteful books. And
we did have a conversation about that, how my spouse is the most accepting of my Harry Potter.
So my Harry Potter stuff, this used to all be downstairs in our living room, and my wife was always like, can we just reduce the amount? So when I told her, because we were going to do the podcast, that I was moving it all upstairs to my office, she was ecstatic. She was like, this podcast is the best idea your siblings have ever.
You're welcome, Lisa.
I know. She's thrilled.
We'll dive into the Sorting Hat, our first subject today. We're going to dive a little bit deeper on our relationship with Potter. And you can't cover everything. And we kind of talked about what it meant to us, how we started reading it. We picked up the books really young, even had it read to us. Kind of want to talk beyond that, some of our experiences. I know for me, I went to the same mall for the midnight premieres of 5 and 6. And a bunch of my friends were there. And some of them weren't even big Harry Potter fans, but it turned into a social event at the Barnes & Noble. Shout out to dying bookstores. And they had a party with prizes and snacks and costumes, and it was fun because I got to hang out with my friends, but then they wanted to keep hanging out and I wanted to get home and read those books. But what are some key moments kind of as those books and movies came out that I think anyone listening who's a big Harry Potter fan can relate to these? What are some of those big moments for you guys?
I only did one midnight release of the books, and that was for Deathly Hallows. I don't know why I really didn't go to the other ones, but it was throughout my high school years and stuff, so I always got the books immediately, but I didn't always go to releases. But I remember that one very specifically. I think it was the year after I'd graduated high school, and my friends and I all wore shirts that were pro-villain. I think I wore a Team Malfoy shirt. It was just kind of funny, just to make people upset at the book launch, just for fun. And we'll get into my house and all that in a little bit. But that was a really fun moment. That was the only time I did that. And I regretted not going to the others because it was so much fun. I very distinctly going to the first movie. I remember the movie theater and everything we went to. And there was this long line just to get in the theater, which is hadn't really happened at that theater that I had been
before assigned seating too. Because I remember that it mostly happened for Star Wars and Harry Potter those days. And
you have to line up earlier. You get stuck in a corner or somewhere in the very front row going like this.
Well, and we were never a small group, so we had to sit together. And then I very much remember my first time going to the Wizarding World at Universal Orlando. And I think I was with you, Mitchell, and Dad the first time. And I literally made them sit because Mitchell had already been before, and it was my dad and I's first time. And at the end of the day, I was like, can we just sit here and pretend that we live here? They did it with me. I was like, let's just hang out here. But just very key moments. And then obviously big moments reading the book. I remember trying to figure out who RAB is, things like that were it was such a big part of our lives. When a book came out, it would be our world for the next 2 to 3 days when we read the book and then waiting for the next one,
My mind goes to waiting for the next one. Because I think about, because we talked about before, I came across Harry Potter when Prisoner of Azkaban, I think, had just come out. And so we had somewhat of a wait for Goblet of Fire. which was stressful. But then from Goblet to Order of the Phoenix was the longest stretch without a book. And man, those were a lot because there was just so much time of just wondering like what's gonna happen next, where things gonna land. And so I remember when Order of the Phoenix came out. I very distinctly remember Half Blood Prince. I didn't go to any like big events or anything, but I remember lining up at King Supers, which is the Kroger in Colorado where we live. And I got a book right at midnight and went home and started reading it. And I think I read till like 4 a.m. or something. And just like I distinctly remember, who is this Rufus Scrimgeour guy? Like, why are we spending time on him? Or no, sorry, was it Rufus at that point? Yeah, because he had just replaced Fudge after book 5. Sorry. My brain goes weird places. But no, but that waiting in between books for me is one of the biggest parts, just the speculation for years, sometimes trying to figure out where the story was going to go, what all these little things meant, because JK is known for, she kind of dropped hints. And one of the coolest things about her story is that so much of it does actually tie together in the end. Like when I went back for the first time, because I think we listened to Harry Potter a lot. So like, I don't think we ever could fall asleep without Harry Potter, Jim Dale's audiobook playing in the background. And I just remember the very first time going back and revisiting chapter 1 of book 1, and they mention, after having finished the series, right? And they mention like Sirius Black's bike and like those kinds of connections. And you're like, holy cow, like it all fits together. So trying to like make those connections ourselves without knowing the rest of the story. But yeah, I mean, the times that me and Mitchell, we traveled out to go see to Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios.
It had only been open for like 3 months. Like we went for it. It was like my high school graduation trip. It was the first time I'd traveled kind of without my parents, I think. Like just me and you stayed with our cousin. Yeah.
So we had lots of Potter themed or driven adventures with those kinds of things. I think I think it was book 1 and 2 because they came out around Thanksgiving, and I think we saw them in Utah, didn't we?
Definitely 2. I remember seeing 2 while we were away for Thanksgiving, and
I know we saw 2 in a row. I just can't remember if it was 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. We just happened to be in Utah.
One of them we saw there, and one of them we saw for the second time there. Like I remember, we're like, should we go see Harry Potter again? And we're like, yeah. Even though I was pretty frustrated with the first 2 adaptations, to be fair, even though I really liked them. I was like mad that they weren't being more accurate, which is, it's funny now you look at the first book is the longest movie for the shortest book, and the 5th movie is the shortest movie for the longest book. Clearly they got better at adaptation, but when you look at it in the grand scheme, they didn't really lose that much, but I remember that. But yeah, with those, every time a book came out, I remember J.K. Rowling obviously started a lot of the books away from Harry. And I just remember the world expanding, like meeting Mrs. Fig and going to the hospital or
the World Cup.
Yeah, the World Cup was like, I think our first time really expanding the world. And that I would just forever, that was my favorite, like just the beginning of that book because it was so cool. And like when they mentioned the Americans, I was like, woohoo!
They do that brief sweet mention. But yeah, I think for the movies, I remember going to the midnight for the movies pretty late. I remember, Steven, you and I lived in Utah when the 7th or 8th, I can't remember, movie came out. And I think we went opening night, but we did not go midnight. But I think midnight releases overall like have fallen out of favor with fandoms. Like it's not as big. Thursday night showings have become the thing now. But I dressed up as a mentor.
It comes out at midnight, but they have 7 o'clock showings and things. So that's, I think at that point we were already to that. Yeah. And so we didn't go crazy late.
It's funny because they're with streamers, they're like, oh, it comes out on Wednesday. And if it comes out on Wednesday at midnight Eastern, sometimes that's like 8 p.m. Pacific. I'm like, so people in LA are just watching it like it's a regular prime time. So it's just coming out that. It is interesting who, like, some of them now do like a 6 or 7 a.m. release, which if you're really into it, like people were waking up for episodes of The Mandalorian early in the morning. And I'm like, we gotta standardize this somehow.
You get to a point where you're just like, I'm at the point now, I'm just getting too old, I'm pushing 40. And so it's like, I can't wake up at that time to watch a show. Come on.
But I think, Harry Potter meant a lot to me, and like really tough times, like falling asleep to those books. A little funny one. Our oldest sister, first of all, I want to thank Shauna for taking me the midnight releases because I didn't realize you guys weren't there. Second of all, our other sister, we have many siblings. She had a guy come stay with us. We were pretty sure they were going to get married. I don't know if they were engaged. I think they were. They came to visit and they had to sleep in separate bedrooms per our parents. And he slept in the bunk bed with me. I slept on the top bunk, but I was like, I'm playing Harry Potter. And he was like, okay, because he wanted the family to like him. He's like, okay. So shout out to our brother-in-law who had to listen and fall asleep to Harry Potter with me. But in all good times, like Harry Potter is meant a lot to us. Like the most difficult times, it's been always nice to be able to read or talk about or watch and fall asleep to. Like it is actually really sentimental, and I know that is that way for a lot of fans, and there's different elements, but it like weaves your way into your life in that way. So we'll
Well, I
definitely
think
be
like
talking. Go on.
as sorry, as siblings though, like I was talking about the speculation between books, like I don't know, but I feel like we spent a lot of time discussing it together. Like it was definitely like a common bond between us. It's something that we would talk through a lot, and we would all, you know, I don't know, stress out
Even
about and
now,
get excited for.
Yeah, it's definitely part of our sibling bond, and even our family. Like our dad read the books, like
Yeah.
all our siblings read them. And then I was just gonna say, as a person with like a lot of anxiety, growing up listening to those books at night, falling asleep was like a game changer for me. Like it was just like an escape every night, so I didn't have to like rethink everything throughout my day. So I was like the same, and I'm not gonna lie, I still do it a lot of time, and my husband allows it, which is good.
Hannah, she's always said like if there's a really tough time, she's like, but my wife can sleep through anything, and so if she fell asleep 10 minutes later, if I turned it on, she would have no idea, honestly. So if I need to, but yeah, there's just so many little touchstones that will hit along the way. Like when it comes to theorizing, man, I was on MuggleNet all the time. It's funny, I wouldn't consider. I'm not a scholar. I never like. Some people really take it seriously in a scholarly way. So and like sometimes I do good at Harry Potter trivia, sometimes not as good. It just depends on the line and where my head's at. But it's like I don't claim to be an expert, but I'm like I did listen to him each like 40 times, so I probably know a good bit, and it's just clearly really important. Part 2 of the Sorting Hat, and this will help us explain ourselves a bit more, is a literal sorting hat, and we'll talk about what houses we are in. So, Stephen, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, this is funny because when we did, I think when Pottermore very first came out, or maybe it was even on the Scholastic's website, they had like a quiz you would take and you would get your house, right? And so the very first time I ever took it, I got Gryffindor. I was very proud. You know, everyone wanted to be a Gryffindor, I think. And then later on, at some point, I don't know, they redid the quiz or something like that, and I went in to retake it. And now I'm a Hufflepuff, and I'm a little torn because I mean, Hufflepuffs are my admirable and stuff too, but I don't know. I'd already really internalized the Gryffindor, and so now I'm a little torn. But if I'm gonna let the Wizarding World website tell me what I am, then I'm a Hufflepuff.
I
And
think
I have a
that's
big
important
theory
though.
about
Like, so there's ways we see ourselves, and we've changed over time. I know J.K. Rowling's talked about, oh, your house might change over time, but like the quizzes have changed over time. So like when I was a kid, I wanted something, maybe Gryffindor at first because that's the heroes, then Ravenclaw because I thought I was real smart, and I didn't want to be Gryffindor. I want to be like have what is now known as main character syndrome, where I felt like I had to be like Harry. But then I was like, you know what? During college I cut a lot of corners academically, so I was like, maybe I'm a Slytherin. And now every time I test, I get Gryffindor, and I don't think I'm a Gryffindor. I'm not gonna lie. Like, hopefully, I have some of the good qualities, but at the same time, I was like, I'd rather be a Ravenclaw or even a Huff. I was like, the more you think about it, a Hufflepuff could be like a loyal person who's the jack of all trades. Like,
yeah.
I think there's the negativity based around Hufflepuffs. I used to not agree with it, but I was like, look, she made it the afterthought for a reason. But now I'm like, I'd be fine. But I guess if Pottermore is the answer, as Scholastic was, which was different, then I guess I'm a Gryffindor. I own Slytherin robes, I should say, while I was in that phase, and I bought a hoodie and a Ravenclaw patch when I was a child. So I am a house whore.
Well, it's like the American like houses, if you've ever read about those. I don't know if they call them houses, but they're kind of in between some of them, and I almost like that better. So every time I think I've taken a quiz, I get Gryffindor, and I'm really not trying for Gryffindor. And there's so funny, like the reason I've never identified as a Gryffindor, I've never felt like a brave person, and I know that's only one aspect of Gryffindor. Like there's moments, like in a moment, I'm kind of like I'm a get it done person. So sometimes that's what makes me brave. I'm like, okay, let's just go ask this person. Let's just get this done. But I wouldn't say like I'm the first to run out into anything or anything like that. But I've always self-identified as a Slytherin and not in the bad, way. But like the descriptors of Slytherin, and I think it's because I've talked about before, I grew up with a reading disability. I've always had to be like really clever in this, I guess sounds bad, and manipulative in the way I like traverse life and like get things done, and how I didn't cheat in college, but I always like figured out like the easiest way or the way I had to roundabout do things and stuff like that. But I have this theory that once everyone hits around like late 20s, 30s, we all become Hufflepuffs. Because you're just, especially when you start having kids and all, like you just become, I feel like, more loyal, and you just become more rounded as a person, where it's not like you're not trying to be necessarily the hero of your own story. You're just trying to get through life. And we're all Hufflepuffs now.
Well, I think majority do, because I think you get some, you know what, I'm going to say, I think there's some dumb people that are Gryffindors. I think that there's academics that are Ravenclaws who don't have social cues, may not care as much. They're really driven towards something. Maybe it doesn't have to be academics, but something maybe STEM. And then I think that you have salesmen, and they are the Slytherins of the world, and the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs are absolutely, and I wish I was a little bit more entrepreneurial because I'd like to have more money, but I think they're very Slytherin-like. So, but yeah, I think generally people fall into Hufflepuff, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a healthy thing for the world.
And these are books where these are children being sorted. So,
Well, it's funny because like Hufflepuffs in many ways it's kind of the more boring house, But like Jimmy was saying, once you get older, like boring is good. Like I'm sick of the drama. I don't need any more of the crazy. Like just give me routine and like consistency, and that's that's a happy place. So maybe you guys made me feel better about my Hufflepuff.
Well, like I think in your 20s and sometimes 30s now, like obviously things get pushed back. Like you're so focused on yourself. I always say they're very selfish years, even if you're not a selfish person. Like you're trying to drive your career forward. You're still finishing degrees. Like you're trying to then have fun with your extra time. Like whether you end up having kids or not, like you certainly spend that time trying to get yourself to a certain position by the time maybe you're ready to slow down. So maybe that time can be Slytherin-y as you make more selfish choices. It just depends how much you hurt other people along the way.
I'm liking these adjectives. We should write these down. Slytherin-y, Hufflepuffness. I feel like
put them in the show
in the future. We can work them into some titles of our future episodes.
Let's move back to some negativity. Question number 2 comes from the Howler. We can discuss some frustrations or disagreements we have with the Harry Potter fan base, or maybe things that we disagree with or criticisms we might get for our Harry Potter perspective.
I just think, people around our age, when the books came out, there wasn't really a lot. Like even merchandise, did we talk about this last time? Like the merch that came out was like very small and specific. Like we talked about, we had like a Warner Brothers store in one of our malls, and like I still have a piggy bank from that I bought. It was like this huge phenomenon. All these people reading these books, but as kids, it's not like we're having book clubs. Like we're discussing it amongst our family, ourselves, but it's still like a very personal thing. So as like the IP expanded and the world expanded, I was like so protective of it at first. And this is like when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, as all that stuff started coming. And I was like, I didn't want to hear other people's opinions on it. I still get defensive when people like are mean about Dumbledore and things like that. Like it's like, and if you're a reader at all, like reading is such a personal thing. You imagine the world, even though you're going by like the author's descriptions and stuff like that, but it's like kind of between you and the author and the characters. And so I am not the best about branching out. Like the movies were kind of hard at first, and there's still things about the movies that make me so mad. There's whole movies I do not like, and I've never really done any fan fiction, anything like that. So like I get that people love it so much that they want all that, but to me it's like, no, I'm like such a faithful to like the canon of the books that I don't argue with people, but sometimes like I've become like in my life, especially my husband's a little older, so some of those people have read the books, but not all of them, but they're like see me as the Harry Potter girl, so they'll come and like talk to me about things, and like if I disagree with something, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get quiet, because it's weird if I'm like in my 30s arguing about Harry Potter. But now that I have gotten older and mature, I do appreciate, like I appreciate that the movies have been made, and I appreciate there's an amusement park I can go to, and that there is all this merch and stuff now, even if it isn't exactly how I imagined everything.
Yeah, it is funny. I do find myself recently, especially, I feel like there's been kind of a resurgence of merch lately. Like, I feel like kind of during the Fantastic Beasts years, there was just less and less, like, Harry Potter stuff. And now, like, I see shirts all the time. Like, that shirt that sweater I left at your house that hopefully fits your daughter. Like, when I saw that, I was like, I have to get this. It won't fit any of my children, but I really want this because it's cute and it's Harry Potter. And so I got it for my niece.
She wore it to school the other day.
Oh, did she? Nice. So it fit? I'm glad. But yeah, and I'll get like cute little dresses for our 2.5-year-old. My wife is like, she doesn't need any more dresses. I'm like, but it's Harry Potter. It's cute. And you're right, we definitely didn't have that in those earlier years. I would say like my biggest issue with people and especially like the fandom is that we have this ability to kind of, I don't know, like co-op things, right? And so people would like have their interpretation of the story and they would tie it to something that's really important to them. And that would annoy me so much. I'm like, that's not what she's talking about. No one ever mentioned that topic in the book. Like, would you quit making it into something that is not? Like, it's a story and it's a great story, but like, quit turning it into whatever your political issue is or environmental issue, things like that. It was just like, because that, I don't know, I feel like that generated so much conflict between people because then it became a question of JK's intentions rather than like what she actually put in the book. And it's like, we don't know her intentions. We can't ask her about every line of the book and what she meant. Like, we need to just soak in the world. And the fanfic piece was hard too. I tried really hard to get into fan fiction because, like I said, you have a book and we'd have years to wait. Or since the series ended, and it's like, oh, I want so much to get back in that world and experience like something new, or like that sense of awe, or excitement for like, oh, cool, like there's a new, the Quidditch World Cup or American Wizards, like that feeling. But man, the fanfic, I guess I've heard there's good fanfic out there, but I've tried, and it just doesn't feel right, to the point where like Cursed Child doesn't feel right, because it's just not, it's not canon, by the way, and.
I could do a
just
howler on Cursed Child anytime. I mean, I still
Yeah.
want to see it, but man, the first time reading that, I was mad.
What the heck? No, so all of it, I think those are the pieces, and I think some of it ties to things like Star Wars has similar issues just because you have all these. We think of the fandom, but really it's millions of individuals, and each one of them kind of wanting things to go a specific way and stuff, and so it's hard to please all of us, and I get that, but sometimes other Harry Potter fans are just idiots. I'm sorry I have to say it out loud, but
Just like with
whatever.
I'm part of the idiots. I read a lot of fan fiction.
Yeah.
I always wanted more. And yeah, the more like people got invested to it was interesting. Like sometimes it was great what people would find for themselves in the books, or like what J.K. Rowling would say the interpretation is versus what we thought and had knew. But I read a lot of fan fiction, but I think it's just because I wanted to spend more time there. I did Harry Potter like online role playing like through message boards on Neopets.
I forgot that you did that.
And then there were independent sites that would do it, but I couldn't get enough. I was pretty young, so it was like I didn't always know what bad writing was, but there was some good writing. And I think it's worth saying that Cassandra Clare, who wrote the Mortal Instruments series, she started out by writing Harry Potter fan fiction. And my friend Christy, her favorite trio of fan fiction novels are from her, and they're called the Draco trilogy. And I think Draco and Harry get together in this trilogy. It is a little bit more rated R, as I remember it. I mean, I'm happy for people to explore that in any way that they want. I think what we've gotten out of, I think the reaction to Fantastic Beasts was so muted and Cursed Child that I'm almost like, it's different because Star Wars, I think, is actually more toxic, but there's also been way more content that feels more similar. I feel like basing something in the Skywalker saga is kind of like basing something at Hogwarts. We just haven't had Hogwarts-based stuff really come out of it, except for Cursed Child, which, yes, I read the script. And I remember because the first bits I was like, this is interesting. And I remember some of the stuff I was like, that's cool that happened. Then I realized this is kind of bad fan fiction. That wouldn't happen. That's not how that character behaves. Why are we using time turners again? But seeing the show in person, what I like to think is they took some elements of the world. Like Harry Potter just wouldn't be that person. I'm sorry. But it felt like seeing the magic on stage. Part of the reason I came to London is because I really like plays and like I watch a lot of West End shows, so just seeing it as a play, it's cool how they do a lot of that stuff.
Can I just say real quick, I don't want to completely dog fan. I love the fact that fan fiction exists and that people, and I think it's amazing that people create that and add on to the world. It's just hard for me sometimes, like if I'll read fanfic, then I imagine that as part of the character, and I hate when I can't separate that, when I'm like, wait, did Hermione really do this? Or I don't like reading about like Hermione and Harry getting together, stuff like that. But the thing that's really annoying about Cursed Child is that JK approved it, and I'm like, what happened to this boy? Anyway, but that's even worse to me. Then I'm like, at least these are like fans and people who like love the series adding on. But when she she approved that, and I'm like, no, this person would never do that. Anyway, sorry, go on, Mitchell.
Bleak and just not great. It's like how they didn't use George. Sorry to come comparing it, but George Lucas, they didn't really use his outline for the sequels, and we didn't get this time with some of the expanded universe children of the main trio from Star Wars. It's just like we didn't know what was going to happen with their kids, but it should have been more fun. Like, and they introduced it as a trio, but then like it ends up just being about the two boys. Anyway, it's not worth talking about Michelle that much. If anyone wants to, let us know. But I have seen it. I will see it again. I entered the lottery, so there's a lottery every week, but I can only do it on wives days when Hannah, my wife, can do it because I want her to see it. I'm like, we will see it at some point. There is something really cool about it, but it also is horrible. So I'm torn. But yeah, like I like shipping Harry and Hermione. I don't think J.K. Rowling is good at writing romance. I will say I haven't read the Strike novels other than maybe the first one. I think Harry and Cho, the more I read it, I'm like, this is actually realistic for him to screw it up and for her to be like handling things terribly when she's in an emotional state, which is very justifiable and stuff. I was like, this makes more sense than Harry and Ginny could have worked, but they didn't put in the work, Ron and Hermione, some people really liked that. I'm like, why is this inevitable? I don't understand, but I digress. That's just more
shipping Harry and Hermione, Mitchell, before we knew.
Absolutely was shipping Harry and Hermione.
No. My husband always tries to say that to me, and I'm like, no.
The dance scene in Deathly Hallows Part 1, which is the best movie, the chemistry is there, even though she's
friendship. It's a
that's
beautiful
why they
moment.
put it in there, though, right? Because that's all that the Harry Hermione shippers are gonna get. Like that's your opus right there, and
I'm not going to argue about this. I hate.
Have you ever seen this movie? What's it called? It was in the 80s. It's about New Year.
When Harry met
Sally. Yeah, men and women cannot be friends. Okay, you don't have that much chemistry as a friendship. Okay,
you can.
It wasn't in the
not
Harry
to make
Potter's
this weird.
Okay,
but it reminds me more of a brother-sister relationship.
That was not a brother-sister dance, Jamie.
That movie is my favorite movie. We can talk about that some other time. And I
love
that moment.
Like that.
We're saying coming up next, we will be going movie by movie. We're hoping there's more that comes out about the show as time moves on. It's funny, I'm in a group where people post little casting things because I do some voice stuff, but it's where people legitimately go to try and get casting stuff in London. And there's a thread that was posted today. It was like, has anyone's kid heard back or not heard back? And like anyone who says their kid did hear back, people are like, you're a liar, you all signed NDAs. And then other people are like, here's what happened for my kid. But they're like, oh, mine just got asked for another self-tape last week. So I'm like, I don't know if there's any credence to it, but I love showbiz moms and dads. Wow, they should have made more one season than that Bravo show or whatever it was on, because that is entertaining stuff.
We just need a documentary of this behind the scenes casting.
Anyway, news has to be inevitable sooner or later if they're about to start filming. That's all I'm saying.
Hopefully.
So I feel like we've kind of already drifted into this, so I'm going to push this over to the Pensive. So reflecting on how the effect Harry Potter has had on our lives. I think we kind of mentioned this, but a big one for me, like I said, was falling asleep. As we became adults, we started to find that many of us and our siblings actually have ADHD, and I've got it like hard now, and I've since learned to live with it. But I didn't realize how much like Harry Potter was a piece of that. Like when I did something to like focus on or to calm down or like to sleep, right? To get like Jimmy was saying, have a story for my brain.
Are you saying
to in like a calm voice
that Jim Dale is your Ritalin?
Allow me to end my day. What's that?
So are you saying that Jim Dale is your Ritalin?
He was for a while. Yeah.
He's still mine. I love him. Such an escape.
So yeah, I think that was, and then also just like it was something. It was kind of a, like we've talked about, if I met somebody and then you find out that they're Harry Potter, like there was already like immediate camaraderie there. So like there were some pretty fast friends I made like in college because we had that in common, and people who like I still talk to this day. Like we're still friends, we still stay in touch, and the nexus of that was Harry Potter. So I think it's had a huge effect on my life.
I agree. Well, I mean, when it comes to people, I made my husband, he wouldn't read all the books, but he listened to all the audio tapes before we got married. He had to listen to them. There's some things that have been done. I don't know. I should have had maybe him invest in more things or things like that, but whatever. It's very important to get the Harry Potter in, just to understand parts of me. Like, I have so many theories about like the meaning of each book and all these things. Like, I am someone who probably overthinks things in the books and characters and things like that. And also like just, after high school, where I had a lot of friends, like our generation in general, Harry Potter was such a big part of. So like a lot of people read the books and stuff. But when I went to college with people of like varying ages and stuff, I went to film school, and like I became like one of the Harry Potter people, like a Harry Potter girl, and like amongst my husband's friends, like, oh, she really likes Harry Potter. And the funny thing is, I don't feel like I'm not like walking around talking about Harry Potter all the time, but people just associated it with me a lot, which I didn't even realize. But I Harry Potter just means so much to me. And it's actually, in the cheesiest, silliest ways, have helped me work through relationships. It's made me understand people, like growing up with the books. It's done so much to like grow up with characters and see like, you know, Dumbledore and these big characters make mistakes and then try to and admit to that or stuff like that. There's so many good life lessons that I've like added to my life because of that. My daughter may have the middle name after one of the characters in the book, so I love Harry Potter. Probably some people think a little too much, but it is such a big part of my life, and like it really has become an escape. Like not even just listening to the books, but like, you know, when I was a kid, not as much now, but like if I was having like a really hard time, like I would go to sleep at night or I would just kind of escape into that world, like imagining being at Hogwarts or seeing things. It's even why I like Legacy. I love Legacy for just running around the world. Like I just think it's like the greatest. So yeah, it means a lot to me. And the older I get now, I'm like, okay, maybe, and I am starting to let go of certain things a little bit more and more, like as I'm approaching my 40s. But I am very appreciative that I had Harry Potter growing up.
Yeah, I like it's partially a hobby that's become an identity in a safe space. Like went through really immense depression in my early 20s. I don't know if Harry Potter's the cure. I don't think there was a quote that was specifically a touchstone, but it was a safe space, and it was a story that brought me joy and excitement and yeah, being associating with it and the milestones of like ways I've interacted with it since. It's just always been a part of me. And yes, I also asked my wife to read them. And luckily she had a long bus journey every day to work. So she read them. She doesn't remember that much, but she read them and she watched the movies. So you kind of have to know like little bits of it. And she knows it's important to like our familial relationships as well. It's just, yeah. And I think exploring that it's why I'm a good reader and a good storyteller. Like, yeah, it's like almost a home base of creativity for like everything that's come through that. Like I'm a big sports nerd as well, and so it was kind of like that. And that's what people would get me for Christmas was either Harry Potter, Denver Broncos, or bacon themed. It was one of the three. It's still mostly true unless I ask for something practical. Like,
and sometimes it's like, do I need more bacon socks?
Yeah, I did put a little bit of a hold on the bacon because the bacon in the UK is not great. But in general, also, yeah, I was just like, oh, I have more culinary interests. Maybe sausage is a better breakfast meat for a croissant sandwich. I don't know. It is. But yeah, like it is just such an everyday part. And that's why like, they may build a new, I've mentioned this already. They might do a new Universal Studios here and then they're doing this TV series. It's all happening here. And I'm like, if I didn't need money, I could just go be a PA. Like I get such a kick out of like being excited about the new little things that are coming. Like I remember theorizing about RAB, and the only other person who had finished the books was like our older sister's friend, who I didn't even know that well, Nikki Kelly. And so she called me because she had a theory. The only two people who had read the book had to talk about it, even though we didn't know each other. And I think that weird nerdy excitement, like you meet random people and it brings you together. Like you meet Harry Potter fans once in a while, and it does spark something. Although now there's this jaded, it was almost too popular. You know, it was like the overplayed song and stuff. And I'm like, I've never felt weird about it being something I'm significantly interested in. But yeah, sometimes people have identified it with me. And like when my wife tells her friends I have a Harry Potter podcast, I'm like, well, like make it sound like a hobby. Making sure it says it's not like a weird. Make sure it doesn't sound weird that I do that. But
it's also their perception of it. Their perception might just be the movies or movies they've never seen. And so like they don't really understand the depth of it, I don't think, all the time.
I have a hard time not explaining the full context to people. Like same with, I'm not a Disney adult by any means, but we have a sister who works at Disney. We've been to Disney a good amount. I'm like, I like Disney World to some degree, but I also know a lot about it. And so when people go in and they have no idea what they're talking about, I'm like, oh, I could enhance your life. Just let me explain some context. Like I need to give you context, but then I talk way too much. But that is most of my life.
I forgot a part too that I just want to mention real quick. I mentioned this, I think, in the first episode that like I grew up with a reading disability, and reading was not something I saw as enjoyable. And it's not even because I didn't like the content of books and stuff. It's because I associated it with being embarrassed, with like a struggle in my life. And I know this is a lot of people's stories, so that's just why I want to mention it. Sorry if I cry. I cry a lot, people, just so you know. I'm on another podcast. I always have to put that out there. Just to cry, that's where I go to. But Harry Potter literally changed my life. In that, like before Harry Potter, all I would really read were like R.L. Stein books. Like I loved like kind of creepy stuff growing up, but it made me learn to love books. which that was the lead way into me getting better at reading. And now I love reading. I read all the time, or I do audiobooks all the time of so many different genres. But Harry Potter made reading possible for me. And I do not think I would have the relationship I do with books today if it wasn't for Harry Potter. So I just want to put that out there because I know that's a lot of people's stories.
I just started a new book series for the first time in a long time. I read one book over Christmas break. I was doing audiobooks for a long time, but I haven't read books, whether Kindle or physical, in a long time. And like, I started one very popular, the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, and he's got like 50 books. He's a fantasy author that puts out like crazy, and people seem to think he's high quality. So I was like, oh, I got to try this. And Kindle had a bundle for 3 books in one. And so I've been really enraptured in it. Like last night, I spent an extra hour reading after I should have been asleep. I was like, oh, I haven't felt this in a long time. And that is what Harry Potter did. Like, it was such a page turner. I love that world expanding, meeting those characters in more depth. And so we're hoping this TV series can capture that magic. But yeah, like, we would read a book in 2 days and then obsess for 3 years for the next book. You know, that's why the movies almost helped like be part of it. And then we've gotten to see it come to life. And so this is the next chapter. So I do want to move to our next one, the Marauders map. And we want to show post books, post movies, what has engaged us from the Harry Potter series. Where has it literally taken us? And then maybe we'll counteract that with what are our greatest hopes. We'll close that out. We'll make that the golden snitch, is just what are our greatest hopes for the series so it can bring that magic back about, or beyond the series if there's spinoffs. What more can we get from this fandom? But I will start with the map, and we just talk about where it's taken us. I don't live in London because I'm a Harry Potter fan. I need to emphasize that, okay?
I think you do.
But
I think it's the core, our core love for the UK was born with Harry Potter, but also other, like, you know, growing up on Peter Pan and stuff like that. Like, Americans sometimes idolize the UK, but.
Well, there's like Anglophiles who are obsessed with royalty or something.
Yeah.
Like, it certainly was different. I came here as a junior in high school to travel, and it opened my eyes to travel. And obviously because I speak the language, and there's just so much I love London because it's either really old or really new. And it's just so different. Like, if I'd grown up in New York and come to London, I don't know if I would have been as enamored with it, because I also grew up in a suburb, and this is such a city center. And so it literally, in some ways, I'm sure influenced me here, because when I came to London, I loved it. And then I visited twice as an adult, and I didn't know if I could really live here. And then I actually moved here 5 years ago on quite a whim. Like, it was not planned out. So it's not like I always said I'd be in London, I should clarify. But what I did do in London is visit the studio tour. And that's where we say, like, whether the movies are the main crux of your love for Harry Potter or not, which it's valid if they are, you're not as good as us who love the books more. But the studio tour is really cool. Also, we're kind of film nerds. Like, we just like film and movies and TV in general. But just like the theme park, to feel immersed in that and to see how they made it. And it's just quite fun. I went again this year for the first time in 7 years, because our other sister and my nephew were here. And you ride a broom on a green screen, and you go through the real sets, and you see the drawings that they made. And like, there's such cool drawings of the burrow that's not what the burrow looks like. So I'm like, ooh, what could the burrow look like this time? Like, I just think it is actually quite an experience. And then I want to highlight the very last room is a model of Hogwarts that's massive. It's probably 20 feet high and maybe 40 feet wide, and it's the grounds, and it goes day to night, and then it goes summer to winter. And I get that they just play the music in that room, and it does make me quite emotional being there. It is something that connects me too. So that is literally somewhere that I've been taken on the map because of Harry Potter. And yeah, I don't know what you guys want to touch on, but I do think we're going to do a whole episode on theme parks. I've decided, because that's something I've been getting really nerdy about recently in general. But feel free to mention those still, like we already kind of have. But what do you guys think? Where's the Marauder map taking you because of this relationship?
So yeah, I went, was it 2017 with Mitchell and then our other sister to the studio tour in the UK. That was my first time in the UK. And that was awesome. Loved it. I've been to Universal several times. we have friends and stuff that work. We have family that live in Florida in the Orlando area. And then we have friends that work at Universal. So it's a little more obtainable going a little more often. And now Steven lives down there. So he's been, but last year I just happened to end up going to the Hollywood Universal Harry Potter, and then also
which is just
Orlando. It just worked out that way. But yeah, so I've been there several times. That was my first time ever going to the Hollywood one, which is a little bit less. But yeah, and then I'm just trying to think. It's just, I mean, besides the UK, like gone anywhere actually physically because of Harry Potter.
It
Like
doesn't have to
things
be
IP,
physical.
it's that.
You can talk about Fantastic Beasts if you want. Maybe
Oh,
we should talk
Fantastic
about
Beasts
Fantastic Beasts
too,
in
which
general.
um it just, I mean, like it has made me more, I think, of an adventurous person in some ways, like Harry Potter in general, like wanting to try more things and see new things. And I do like the first Fantastic Beast movie. I know a lot of people don't love it, but it has opened doors in that way, in different ways. And I think in general it's made me more into fantasy novels, so I guess that.
Well, I'll say when it comes to like talking about places, one of the coolest things about Harry Potter for us, I mean, like Mitchell was saying, we grew up in kind of a suburb. Like I don't know if there's anything particularly exciting about the place that we grew up, but with Harry Potter, in books in general, right, it could transport you to this other place. You'd have these, crazy adventures. You'd get to kind of follow Harry through, and so that was one of the coolest parts, I think, too. Is because yeah, even when you think about physical places there are to go, there's the studio tour, there's the actual castle they filmed at, right? There's the amusement parks. And so there's a few things like that, but I don't know if there's a ton. I when I do think of us going somewhere and like spending money and making the effort, it was when me and Mitchell went um in what 2010 to the new park that had opened in Universal in Florida. At that point in time, we didn't live here or anything. No one. I think we had a cousin here that we stayed with, right? But I just remember walking into the park, and it was funny too because the Harry Potter part of the park, for anyone who hasn't been, it's all the way at the back. So you've got to come in, you've got to walk through all these other areas, right? There's Jurassic Park, there's Dr. Seuss Landing, there's Marvel, the old like weird comic booky Marvel, not the cool new Marvel. Walking, just you go through all that, and then as you come through like those gates into Hogsmeade, and you can see the castle and like the Hogwarts, like just man, I mean, I know it is very film based, but like they nailed the ambiance. And I just remember very distinctly walking in there that first time and being like, holy cow, and drinking butterbeer. And me and Mitchell, I think when we rode the big ride they had initially
Forbidden
was
Journey.
Forbidden Journey, right, in the castle. And the line was like 4 hours long or something. So, and most of the line was outside of like the normal line, and it was just going through out into like Jurassic Park, whatever. So I think me and Mitchell, we took turns waiting in line. So he would wait in line, and I'd go wander around, and see Hogsmeade and drink butterbeer, and then I'd go get in line, and eventually, we had to stay in the line because it closed off and stuff. But it was a really cool way. It kind of forced us to kind of do a lot of, or at least me, to sit and like people watch and just kind of soak it all in. And the only problem being, I think it was August, and Florida in August is so freaking hot. I'm sure that Hogsmeade has never actually reached that temperature in fiction or real life or anywhere in the UK, probably because it was so hot. But no, but that's a very cherished memory for me still. And we have some pretty good pictures of it that I look at from time to time.
I think that bit of awe. I mean, we'll talk about Diagon Alley as well, but like the way you walk into Diagon Alley, like I literally think every time I go, I see jaws drop when they walk into it for like how they themed it. And like it actually changed the theme park industry. It made Universal feel like they could challenge Disney in some ways and made Disney step up in some ways. Like I think it's one of the reasons we probably have Galaxy's Edge, which is another area where they've made it the Star Wars world where it's pretty fun to just, if you can afford it, just sit there, just hang out. But yeah, it is cool. I'm trying to think of other Harry Potter locations. I'm not a location chaser. And even sometimes there's like little random Harry Potter pop-ups here, and I don't strive for all of them. Like I part of it is I'm not a huge merch person. I've never felt like there's been something that isn't really enriching. But like I've been to King's Cross and I've been to the other places.
I've been there too.
I've never been where the train goes by in Scotland. Like some people are really big on that. There's some arcades here that's supposed to inspire Diagon Alley, but that's kind of like, I think JK's said that's a myth, but Lead and Hall Market, like I've never made the journey to there, but certainly, yeah, it literally changed our perception probably in a lot of ways. And we didn't travel a lot when we were kids. We'd go to California to visit family, and that was like it from Colorado. So just
I do want to do that though. I want to go to the UK and like do all that stuff. Like I totally would. I would go to Edinburgh and everything.
I'm just like, when I came here as a student, and now I'm like, can't really just fight, but one day I will. I mean, our older sister also traveled a ton, but other than that, like we definitely explore more. I think partially because of things like books, and Harry Potter was our main inspiration when we were younger. Let's go ahead and go to the Golden Snitch. So I'm going to take this bit and just say, okay, looking forward to the TV series and everything else that comes with Harry Potter, what do we hope for? Like, not best case scenario, but if the show doesn't get canceled, if they want to make more, what are either mediums or adventures or movies or spinoffs, whatever, that you think could come from this if the series gets a resurgent? What is the greatest hope?
My hope is like, okay, so, and I know this is different. I know a lot of people have complained about them remaking the same story, but as book lovers, my hope is that they stick to the books as much as they can. Like, and I know that's like idealistic and, you know, whatever, but I really, really want to see, like, I want to see so many things that are not in the movies, even if it's not exactly how I imagined it or it's someone else's interpretation. I'm really excited for that. And I'm excited for it to open up the world to new generations. And I am excited that if this does do well, like Game of Thrones, it opens the door to, I think it's a good stepping stone, how people want like different series. This is a good stepping stone to open those worlds up. If it's done well, and I think it'll be a good test if they can do it well.
Definitely. I think it'll be really cool to see how the world opens up. And I was also thinking about this the other day a lot, and that's, like you said, I hope they hit everything in the books. But because, you know, depending on the amount of time they have, like, I think it'd be cool. I think there's some cool, interesting, like, side stories they could spend a little time on, too, like, to flesh out, like, the characters that we maybe don't know as well. Some of that almost, like, fan fiction-esque stuff, you know, like, what were these other side characters up to during the time? Because I think it would also add an element of like, okay, I want to see the next episode because I don't know what's going to happen with at least part of it, you know? Because that is the hard part about directly adapting the book, is that if it's exact, then it's like there's no mystery at all, right? There's a lot less anticipation. Not for Jamie. So I think that might be interesting to see kind of what they can add in there. But honestly, for me, when I think of what Jamie was even talking about before, is just like the story of Harry Potter, like what it teaches. Like there's just this theme in there of, you know, stuff can get really hard and you can't give up and you have to push through, right? And what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, no matter how it gets twisted. So there's some really good themes in there. And as, again, having my own kids who are now reading the books, I'm really excited for the series. I'm excited for the future of Harry Potter, just because those are important lessons that we can discuss and that they can learn about and be related to Harry Potter. And also we can just nerd out together and watch, you know, the show every week when there's a new episode. And I am a little afraid, because at some point they're going to listen to these and they don't really know that there's fan fiction out there yet. And I'm afraid like they're very hungry for anything else Harry Potter. And that is a deep, deep, bottomless pit that I may never be able to rescue them from. So
it gets smutty real fast.
Yeah.
Worried about that too. That part
spicy.
Too. So, but that part is really cool to think about. It's just my kids as they experience, because like, we've had it and I've kind of molded over for the last 25 years. I've thought, you know, from every different angle, but for them, it's still so new and so fresh. So it'll be really cool to see how they bring it to life with the new series.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you can't, like, the greatest hope is that they just do this well and it tells the heart of the story better. And, you know, maybe they don't tell every class like it's every class, but like even in the books, if you think about it, we only see, you know, Harry and Pushkin twice. We see him in History of Magic maybe once the whole series. Like, it's not, you don't get the true day-to-day feeling of Hogwarts. And if they can do anything to make us feel like we're spending that time with them, like all the other actors, like whoever played, I should know their names, but like Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas, like those actors were like, that was my whole life. I'm like, bro, you were in like 90 seconds of that movie, but like, it was. And I'm like, oh, I'd like to spend more time with them. Obviously, we know the student numbers at Hogwarts a little confusing for how many are in that Great Hall versus in each house and stuff, but it would be good to just explore that. I know that J.K. Rowling's mentioned like Neville's story took precedence, but there was some backstory for the other characters that could have wrapped into the bigger story. Like, I don't mind if more of that's explored. If the first 4 seasons are really good, maybe they would do like a 4-hour Marauders miniseries or a Founders miniseries. But the biggest thing I want is for them to go into the future. So I want not future. I want, like, even now, Harry, like, I don't know, how old is Harry Potter in real life now? If his kids are out of Hogwarts, let's have a new story with new people. Somehow it's Hogwarts based, but also someone's trying to gain power and be the next Voldemort, but doing it in a very different way from Voldemort. I think having good villains is something that like the Marvel universe struggles with, but comic books have had billions of different villains. So it's like, I know Grindelwald is like the past villain, but no show right now is moving into the future. Game of Thrones kind of can't because of George, but like Star Wars, we've seen go back. And I know there's like 4 treatments out there for a new Rey movie. But I think if J.K. Rowling is like, I'm not that interested in writing more books, but if this is successful and gonna make money, like if someone has an idea she approves of, let's move into the future. Let's see what's happening at Hogwarts in 2020. It doesn't have to do anything with the Muggle world. I don't want it to. Although I can't imagine a Muggle-born being like, this is better than cell phones. Anyway.
The pen is much better than the quill. I just don't get it.
Like, oh, like this isn't going to work here, but you guys still have to send an owl. Okay. But I don't know. I'd like to see it actually push forward in time. And guess what? No other series is doing that right now. But there's just, there's so many. My greatest hope, I think, is that it's good and that we get the chance to explore these other things that are out there and possible with the series.
It's gonna be awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah, that's the hope. It is far away. But anyway, keep with us. Any news and updates we will be on top of as things get out and released. And then starting next, there's so many other things. We're going to deep dive into spin-off ideas into theme parks. And most importantly, we're going to be going movie by movie. We don't want to criticize these movies, but we will. And we'll talk about what was missing that we felt like could have truly helped the story, or image-wise, like, hey, I imagined this differently. I read this differently, and I think a lot of people did. Because, like, the movies are mixed in our perception now. So we'll go film by film. I think a really interesting discussion that I'm tempted to have now, but we're not going to, is how many episodes each season should be, how they should divide up the actual hours of time, book by book, versus the length of the book, versus because Sorcerer's Stone isn't as long, maybe we could add other stuff in, or maybe Sorcerer's Stone is only 6 and then the other ones are 12, and there's so many ways that they can go about it. But we will dive into that, I think, and we'll try and take that book by book and say, here's the best way to adapt this with the next book in mind. So did you guys have any other closing thoughts, any dregs in your Trelawney teacups?
I don't think so. We just love Harry Potter, so if we seem like this was too much, this is us. If you like Harry Potter, you're in the right place. We
if you were like,
way too seriously.
I'm as crazy as these people, and I think there are, like, clearly that's why it affected the world the way it did.
And also, if you don't feel that way, you can at least trust us to know.
We will guide you.
That we will bring the passion.
Keep in touch, listen to the episodes you're interested in, and then when the series comes along, I can guarantee it'll be incredible. Yeah. And I'm an apologist, so like, if Jamie goes full hater on it, don't worry, I will counteract her. It'd have to be really bad. But anyway, we're just going to keep on muggling till we get some more Harry Potter content out here. But thanks for joining us, and please follow us on socials at HPTVPod. If you want to email us, just hptvpodcast@gmail.com. And we need a sign off.
No, we need to say goodbye.
But we need like a Harry Potter theme sign off.
Snitch you later.
Peace out, snitches.
Oh, I like that one much better.